Hi there everyone, Scott from Proximity Property Management here with an extra little video regarding the new tenancy laws that are coming into effect from the 30th of September 2024. I just want to briefly touch on each of the points. Obviously, if you have any questions, please send me a message and I'll happily answer them with you. So the easy ones first. So the first one is in regards to the processes or options that you need to provide your tenants on how they can pay rent to you. That's now going to be a minimum of 2 different options that you need to provide to your tenant on how they can pay rent to you. And if there's any extra fees, so if you're using a rent pay app, for example, if there's any fees attached to that, they need to be clearly identified and shared with the tenants so they can make their educated decision on what process they want to follow to pay rent to you. So that's the first one. The second one's in regards to utilities. So it might be water usage that you can on-charge to your tenant. When you receive that invoice, you now have 4 weeks that you have to then pass that invoice on to the tenant so they can clearly see that the charges related to that property. Of course, black out any confidential and private information that's on there regarding your details, or your agent should be doing that for you. And then gets to be passed on to the tenant for them to pay. So you can't bundle multiple invoices anymore. It's got to be 4 weeks, otherwise the tenant may not actually need to pay it. It's pretty simple. Next one's in regards to bonds. So bonds are traditionally calculated to the value of the rent for your property. So if your rent is up to the value of $700 a week, then you'd be asking for 4 weeks, the equivalent of 4 weeks rent as the bond. Anything above $700, so $701 and above, it could be 2 weeks, could be 7 weeks, could be 6 weeks, 5 weeks. Depends on the situation. So those properties that are now in excess of the 4 weeks, they have the opportunity to be refunded. The excess gets to be refunded. So if you've got a property which has a 6-week bond, your tenants can then request to have 2 weeks reimbursed back to them, and they can do that directly with the RTA. I recommend you go and take the lead and you go and organise that yourself. Advise the tenants that you're going to be having that extra money given back to them, reimbursed to them, so that every lease and every bond from now on, or after the 30th of September, is going to be 4 weeks. Okay. This isn't including anything that currently exists. This is just the rules that are going on, but if you've got the excess, that can be returned. So I suggest you do that yourself. The last one's in regards to the reletting fees. So this is a big one in regards to break leases, but I'll try and keep it simple. So when tenants break lease, so they decide that they're going to leave the property before their lease ends. So they might leave today, but their lease doesn't end in 2 months. That's the break lease. So traditionally they'd be asked to pay rent from today until the end of their lease, or until you find a new person to move in. Plus they'd be asked to pay for the reletting fees, probably an online marketing fee, that kind of thing. All that's going to change. It's now going to be a process calculated through the RTA as to what's the least amount that the tenants need to reimburse you for. So it won't necessarily be for the cost of marketing and the likes, and it won't be that full period of rent. It's also going to come down to how much of the lease has already transpired. So there's a lot of information that you need to take into consideration to figure out how much it is, but you're not going to have all that information until the tenants move out and until you get someone else to move in or the lease ends. It's a big thing. So, which is the reason why I alluded to maybe have a look at your landlord insurance. Make sure that you have landlord insurance which covers loss of rent. So you may end up with timeline of rent that the current tenant isn't required to pay between their payment and by the time you get a new person coming in. So it may be able to be covered with insurance. Have a look. It's worth asking the question. If you have any questions, as I said, please reach out and let me know. But that's the briefing update for the 4 main points. The other points are in regards to confidential information that the RTA will be passing on to other organisations. So it's a little bit broader, but those 4 points that I mentioned before are probably the ones to focus on. Any questions, reach out. Otherwise, have a great day. See you then.